Hey guys, Wilson here with Cabinet Startup, and we're going to be bringing you a very special episode of Tradesmen Talks. We decided to do something a little bit different today. As many of you know, Stephen is in the process of doing a cross-country road trip, and it just so happens that the signal wasn't that great, and so we talked about it, and part of the reason he's doing this is Stephen has spent the last several years setting his business up so that when he travels, right, when he's doing a cross-country van trip, the business is still there, it's still running effectively, it's still making money. And the whole point is for him to be able to enjoy this time. So instead of him driving way out of the route to go find somewhere with signal to record this, we decided that, maybe we'll just record something with a ton of value and we'll put it out for you guys, and hopefully you guys like it. So over the past couple of weeks, we've mentioned that we've got a series of courses that we're going to be launching to help people that need something more specific when it comes to addressing challenges in their business. And one of the specific challenges that we've gotten a lot of requests for, and probably the first course we're going to be launching here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, is going to be the sales course. And unfortunately, there's no way we can fit everything that's supposed to go in that sales course into this episode of the podcast. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to focus on what are the key pieces, right? What are the things that if you just took these things away, you'd be able to greatly and dramatically improve your business? It's not going to be as thorough as the sales course. The sales course that we're going to be relaunching is designed to take somebody from, good to great. It really is in-depth in everything that you're going to need. And for those of you that want that extra help and that extra level, there is a link where you can sign up for the wait list for that course. Again, it's going to be about 2 weeks. We've already given away the first 10 free, but anybody that signs up on the wait list from the podcast, we will offer you a pretty significant discount as a thank you for listening and for supporting the podcast. And so without further ado, let's get into it, right? Let's talk about the things that you need to really master for sales. And a lot of this, again, we're going to be teaching in that course, but the first things you actually have to talk about when it comes to sales is your mindset, right? What you're actually thinking. I had a mentor of mine that told me, he said, Wilson, the hardest territory that you're ever going to work is between your ears. And there is some really deep truth to that, because the way that we show up for these interactions, the way that we carry ourselves through these interactions, and the way we retroactively look back on these interactions are all going to impact, right? All these things are interconnected in how we move forward in our sales. And I'm going to be giving you some really clear examples of that. But I want you to really think about and understand that you as the owner, or if you're a salesperson that works in the trades industry, right, your mindset is going to determine your success a lot of times. And so it's going to be 100% up to you to be constantly monitoring and constantly working on that mindset to create the best outcomes for yourself. And you might be thinking, well, okay, so Wilson, what exactly do you mean by that? Well, let's look at the first thing that I want people to approach always when it comes to mindset, right? Because a lot of people, when they're considering sales, are like, oh, I'll just say this right word, or I'll just have this perfect technique, or I'll have this canned rebuttal that's going to make all the difference. And whereas those things can be useful, they aren't nearly as useful as the intention behind how you're approaching something. So the first thing I always like to talk to people about with mindset, and the reason I love this as the first focus of mindset is it then yields actions, right? The first thing I always talk about with mindset in sales is urgency. Success in sales is going to come down to how you approach that, and where it becomes really, really valuable is the urgency with which you are looking at communicating, reaching out to, and interacting with customers, okay? And the reason this is so valuable, and I want you to think about how the process typically goes. If someone is searching online, okay, they're hunting around the internet, they're clicking on different things, they see an article related to in our case, cabinet refinishing, okay? And if they see an article on cabinet refinishing, they may put in their information, and that information comes to us. The question is, once they put in their information that one time, do you think they just get off the internet? Do you think they just stop and go, oh, I got everything I need, I'll walk away now? The answer is no, right? Oftentimes, they're going to be going back to other websites, they're going to be putting their information in different places. And so maybe they go to a Home Advisor website and they put their information in, and then they go to a Thumbtack website and they put their information in. What's going to happen is over the next 24 to 48 hours, they're probably going to be receiving a phone call somewhere between 4 to 8 contractors. Let's just say as a number. Let's say on the low end, it's just 4. Okay, well, if you get a lead and you don't have that urgent mindset, you're not focused on being the first person to get that lead. As soon as it comes in, you're right on it. What's going to happen is they're going to hear from 4 or 5 other people before they ever talk to you. Okay? And that's going to dramatically change the value of the interaction. Because you think about it, the first contractor that calls them, right? They're looking for this particular service. A contractor calls. They're like, oh, that's awesome. I was looking for this. It's so nice to talk to you. When do you want to come out? Awesome. We can't wait to have a quote. Really great interaction. And then a couple minutes later, the next contractor calls. She's like, yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, well, we already have somebody coming out, but it would be good to get another quote. In fact, I've been told you should get 3 quotes, so coming out, we'll schedule a time. A couple minutes later, a third contractor calls. She's like, yep, I know. Awesome, we did want 3 coming out. And then an hour later, a 4th contractor calls. She's like, we already have 3 quotes, so we need more. And then a 5th contractor calls. She's like, why the hell do you people keep calling me? Stop, I've already got my quotes. Click. The difference for you as a business owner, if you are person number 1 and she's excited to talk to you and she wants you to come out to her house, and if you're person number 5, we are now the 5th in a long string of people that want something from her and it's annoying, all she wanted was a quote, the way she perceives you is dramatically different. And you have to ask yourself, which of those 2 people do you think is more likely to actually win the bid? The person that she was excited about talking to because it was the first, or the person that she thought was super annoying and didn't really want to talk to because it was the 5th person within 24 hours, right? The answer should be obvious. It's the first person. But what's really interesting is companies have gone out and done studies on this. And so, like, one of the key takeaways that those companies found was that if you wait more than 5 minutes, right? So calling a lead more than 5 minutes after it came in led to almost a 50% lower qualification rate. Right? So they're 50% less likely to convert into an actual appointment if you wait more than 5 minutes. Taking it a step further, a lead response management study found that when they looked at the amount of time that companies took in between calling, right? A company that called within the first hour is 7 times more likely to qualify a lead than a company that called after the first hour, so between hours 1 and 2. And that company that called in the first hour is 60 times, 60, right? 60 times more likely than a company that waits 24 hours or longer. And so the moral of the story here is speed and urgency matters. You as a business owner, you as a salesperson, you as a person whose job is to not only help these homeowners, but to also drive revenue for your company, you have to approach sales with a mindset of urgency, so that you can increase the total amount of business, but also it creates a better experience for you, right? If you're the first one to call, they're pretty happy. If you're the last one to call, let's be honest, they're pissed. And this same set of urgency, the same sense of urgency is just as important for managing expectations and for follow-up as well. If you have an issue that's going to occur with a customer, it is in your best interest to call that customer immediately, right? You want to stay ahead of the bad news. You want to treat all sales interactions with the same level of urgency, and sales should be the number 1 priority in how you're functioning your business. Okay? Now, once we've established the urgency, right, so we want to call fast. We want to be the first one to talk to them. The second thing we have to focus on is pleasant persistence. And the reason this is so important is because we live in a world full of distractions. Okay? We are going to be talking to people, and every one of those people, and you hear this from entrepreneurs all the time, they're like, man, I'm just so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. I'm sure you are. And so is every person that you talk to. Every single human that could be a customer of yours has their own life with their own problems and their own struggles and their own challenges and their own varying grabs for attention. Every one of them has just as hard a time focusing as you do. All right? And so because that's the case, we have to learn and form the habit of being persistent. You know, it's not a commonly known fact amongst non-salespeople, but your average conversion requires 5 separate individual touch points. All right? So you will need to interact with this customer 5 different times for the average conversion. Now, that doesn't mean they're all that way, right? There are some people that are going to literally write you a check in the house. In fact, that is our favorite type of customer, and we love collecting checks in the house, but that's oftentimes not the case. Okay? So you need to, as a salesperson, as a business owner, form the habit of being consistent and persistent as you're following up with these leads, because the hard truth is most of the leads are not going to buy. understanding this and really sinking this into your psyche as a salesperson is really valuable for a couple of reasons, right? Number one, when leads come in, and this is really hard for a lot of people, let's say you buy 10 leads for $40 a piece, right? And out of those 10 leads, you only talk to 3 people the first time you call them. A lot of contractors will look at that and go, well, I paid for 10 leads and only got 3. That was a huge waste of money. This company sucks. Now, separate from the fact that if you close 2 out of 10 and your average cost was 40, you spent $400, it's $200 per client. That's actually a pretty good deal in our business. Separating from all that, if you only called one time and you talked to 3 people, it's not good nor bad. What it means is you have a whole bunch of people over there that you probably still can get business from, but you're not pursuing them the right way, right? So for example, when we get a new lead, my expectation is they're going to get a phone call and they're going to get a text message right out of the gates. And they're going to get another phone call and another text message and an email at least the next day, and then another phone call, another text, another email the third day. And then I'm probably going to be reaching out to them twice a week, every week after that, until we actually bring them in and close the deal, right? Or until we bring them in and they say, hey, we don't want to work with your company, we've gone with someone else. Or, hey, maybe we changed our mind, whatever the case may be, right? But we want to follow up until we get a resolution. We like closure. Having a deal out there, having a lead out there that we only called one time, that doesn't work, okay? And so you, as a business owner, you have to form that habit of persistence, but you have to do it pleasantly, right? You've got to be the type of person that's nice, friendly, and has a positive interaction with these homeowners when you call them, right? If somebody picks up the phone that you've been calling for 4 or 5 times, like, you've called me 8 times, what? You can never be upset back at the customer, right? Your job is to be like, I did, and I'm so happy I got you on the phone. I saw that you were interested in getting a project done for your cabinets, and it sounds like you are super busy because we've had a heck of a time getting in touch with you. I'm curious, what were you looking to have done, right? And you move right into it. You stay nice, you stay pleasant, but the important thing to focus on here is that persistence. You are reaching out until you get in contact with them. Once you had your sales appointment, you are reaching out until you get a conclusion. And some people may be hearing this and go, well, dude, there's no way I can remember to call that many people. Like, how do you even track all this? The answer is you get a CRM. That's how you track it. And in our actual course, we're going to break down the CRM we use and why we've selected that and kind of how we have it set up, because it is a huge part of it, right? You've got a lot to track. That's part of being a business owner. Your job is to figure out how can you develop systems to make these hard things like tracking, keeping up with all this possible. But when we understand that persistence is really important, right? And we have to do it pleasantly. That means we can't take any negative interactions personally, and we operate with that knowledge, we can convert far more deals. And converting far more deals brings us a lot more revenue for the same cost, and it helps us increase our margins, and margins are what enable us as business owners to grow our business, okay? So if you're going to succeed in sales, you have to be urgent, you have to have that mindset of urgency, and you have to be persistent. And we want to show up pleasantly as we're going through that. Now, the last thing for our mindset is related to that, right? Because if we're being urgent, if we're calling fast, and we're being persistent, and we're trying to do it pleasantly, one of the things that I think that business owners face when they're dealing with homeowners is you are going to have to, one, put up with a lot of, let's call it immature behavior. A lot of people flake on you. They're supposed to have an appointment. They're just not home. Or you'll have people that, they're supposed to send over a check for a deposit, but they don't. Or you're going to have people, oh yeah, we're going to start with you next week. We're going to start, just got to get the money together, and then they don't. Or you'll have people that pick up the phone and are super rude, and it, sucks for you to have to deal with. Whatever the case may be, one of the things that we see happen sometimes with business owners is over time, for lack of a better way of describing it, they start to get jaded. And you can hear their language, and I challenge you to stop yourself and think, like, do you regularly refer to potential leads as tire kickers, right? Or like, oh yeah, these guys, they're full of crap. They're not serious. They're not serious, right? Oh, buyers are liars, right? If you find yourself saying things like this may directly apply to you. If you find yourself thinking that, this customer better be serious, they're not just waste my time, this may apply to you, right? Because for the most part, it is easy to become upset with these people for not doing whatever they thought they were going to do, or not, when the job didn't work out in our favor, we wanted it to be a certain way, or we had, we thought we were going to get this big $20,000 job. We did it. And what happens is people start complaining as a way of relieving some of that stress. Maybe they're just, making fun of the customers with their friends and family, or maybe, they're poking fun of them at the shop. But what happens is complaining like that creates a feedback loop for negativity, right? And this feedback loop for negativity ultimately will make your life hard. It makes the challenging parts of sales, which there are, I'm not pretending for a second that sales is not challenging. It makes the challenging parts of sales significantly more miserable, right? If you have to go talk to people all day, and the way that you go into that, your mindset with that is like, oh, I gotta go talk to all these people that are trying to waste my time. Every time you talk to somebody, you're gonna feel like you're wasting your time. So you're going to be miserable throughout the whole freaking day. And when you show up to somebody's house miserable because you feel like you're wasting your time, they're going to notice that you're not in a good mood. They're going to notice that you're not the kind of person that they want to be around. And guess what happens when they notice that? Oh my God, they don't want to work with you. So now you've spent the whole day and they didn't want to work with you because you showed up with a bad attitude, and it did waste your time. But it's not that it wasted your time. It's that you, because of your attitude, created a negative situation that reduced your overall potential of closing the deal. So in actuality, you wasted your time. And it's really tough because sometimes when we're in these patterns, right? Sometimes when we're in these ruts, when we're behaving this way, we don't always have a way of shaking our way out of it, being like, wait, does this make sense? A friend of mine likes to say, it's always hardest to read the label from inside the bottle, right? It's hard for us sometimes to recognize that we are being negative, or that we do have some of these negative beliefs about customers, right? And so one thing that I think truly separates highly successful salespeople from unsuccessful salespeople is that successful salespeople consistently work and actively do things to avoid becoming jaded, right? I think one of the easiest practices for this, and one of the simplest ways to avoid this, is to be constantly practicing gratitude, right? So writing down the things that you're thankful for, writing down positive experiences that you have with customers, even customers that don't buy. Like if you spend time with a customer and, maybe they didn't buy, but they were funny, they were interesting, they were nice enough to offer you food or offer you water. And I'll be honest, if somebody offers me food, I eat it. I like to eat, right? But also, it shows that you're human. And so I'm always appreciative for that. I'm always writing that down. Like, man, I'm so happy that Ms. Johnson fed me. I'm really happy that, we were able to come up with a quote that met their budget. I was really happy that the husband had a great sense of humor, even though they didn't work with us. And that habit of forming appreciation and gratitude will help you to show up in better mood and perform better when you're with these people. Because the reality is, these homeowners don't owe you shit. They don't. Nobody does. What we're working for is a situation where two people can come together and be mutually beneficial. They don't owe you anything. And so to be upset with somebody because they didn't move forward with your services, or feel like everybody's wasting your time because they just want bids, right? That, you can feel that way. You have the right to feel that way. You can make that choice, but it does not help you. It does not help the homeowner. And the reality is it's not true, right? So we need to form the habit of being appreciative and being grateful, and recognizing that every person that spends time with you, that is an opportunity for you to further your business. That's an opportunity for you to provide for your family. That's an opportunity. And you need to appreciate it for what it is, an opportunity, instead of looking for an excuse to complain about something, right? This practice, if you can form this practice when it comes especially to your sales, night and day difference. It is a night and day difference. You can actually start to enjoy your interactions with customers. You'll find yourself being more playful with customers. And honestly, you'll find yourself liking what you do a lot more. And if you're going to spend your time doing something, you might as well spend your time doing something that you like. So I always like to focus on those three things when it comes to sales for somebody initially, right? I want you to focus on your urgency. I want you to focus on being pleasantly persistent. And I want you to focus on being appreciative and having gratitude. Now, there's all kinds of exercises that you can do around that. For example, with urgency, it's as simple as saying, hey, I call every lead within 5 minutes, okay? And sticking to it. With pleasant persistence, it's as simple as saying, hey, I check off that I followed up with every lead at least X number of times. And then I rate myself like, was I pleasant to talk to? Was I the kind of person that they're going to want to pick up the phone next time I call? And make a note of it. The last thing with appreciation, it's really simple. At the end of the day, you make a gratitude list, or at the beginning of the day if that serves you better. Either way, you have to form the habit and the practice. Okay? Once you have those pieces of mindset, I think the last thing that I like to really focus on for people is their actual intention. Okay? Because yes, we want to be urgent. Yes, we want to be pleasantly persistent. And yes, we need to be appreciative because that helps us be the best version of ourselves when we show up into these potential sales situations. However, when we get to the sales situation, the actual intention that we bring to that sales situation can have a dramatic impact in the actual outcome. So I want to give you two simple examples to kind of illustrate this, right? So one of the big, I mean, it happens a lot. One of the things we see that happens a ton with business owners, especially those that have negative ideas about sales, when you ask them, when they think of sales, what do they think of? And you may actually have this experience, like pause for a second. If I ask you, hey, I want you to imagine a salesperson, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For like 70% of the public, it's like a greasy, slick back used car salesman that's trying to steal your grandmother's money, right? That's what most people are thinking about. And so when they themselves are faced with how they're going to interact with sales and their intention behind sales, their only intention is to be not like that guy. Which is not a good intention, right? One, we never want intentions to be negative. I never want to not be something. I want to be something. So instead of not being sleazy, I want to be honest, right? The focus needs to be positive and it needs to be forward. We never focus on negatives, okay? So if our intention is to not be like that guy, the closest positive to that for a lot of contractors, they go into a sales interaction with the intention of giving a quote. Right? They show up, they have a little bit of small talk, and then they measure some cabinets, they tell the customer briefly about their company, and then they hand them a quote, and they say, do you have any questions? Right? The process is short. It takes, 25, 30 minutes max. The homeowner says something like, oh, well, this is great. Thanks so much. I really just need to think about it. And the contractor goes, that's awesome. Just let me know once you're done thinking about it. And then they leave and never hear back from the customer again. Surprise, right? However, the crazy thing about that is if your intention is to give a quote, you can leave that house feeling really good about the fact that you did what you set out to do, right? Is the difference between going to the Olympics with the intention of being at the Olympics and going to the Olympics with the intention of getting a gold medal, right? One is way more awesome than the other. It just is what it is, okay? We want to have, again, that strong positive focus. And so as a counterpoint to that example, let's say, James shows up, but instead of thinking about just delivering a quote, James is intent on helping a homeowner make the best decision for them. And James has the confidence that working with him is that best decision, okay? So he shows up at the customer's house, and because his intention is to really do well with this customer, he gets there early and he spends time reviewing his notes and covering any previous interactions he's had with that customer. Now, already we see a big difference, right? Because if your intention is really dialed in, you're going to go that extra step. You're going to do that extra work. When he gets there, right? He wants to be the best representative of the company as possible, which means he shows up with a clean, nice shirt. He's not covered in paint. He walks in and asks the customer if he should take his shoes off. Okay? He takes time to learn what exactly the customer doesn't like about their current situation, what it is they're trying to achieve. What is that vision? And what do they want to do with that vision? Is this for, in our case, is this so you can have more people over and you'd like to, host but not feel gross about your kitchen? Is this a function of, the kids are finally gone, you really just finally want the kitchen of your dreams? Like, he gets them to really share what their priority is and why. And after they've developed this beautiful vision, only then, once they understand the project, the timeline, and the intention, only then does he actually go and calculate a quote. He shares the quote with the homeowner, and because he's not interested in just giving a bid, he's trying to bring the customer to the best decision possible, he actually asks for the business. And this is huge. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to deal with contractors that are afraid to ask for the business. It's what you do for a living. You provide this service. You have to ask. You have got to ask. You have to pony up and say, can we work together? I want to work together. What's it going to take for us to work together? You have to ask. Now, again, most homeowners aren't going to give you a check right there, right? And that's part of the process. So the homeowner looks at him and says, James, I'm not quite sure, there's a few still concerns I need to work out. I'd like to think about it a little bit more. And instead of just handing them a quote and leaving, James instead goes, awesome. Well, I want to make sure that I'm staying organized, and this is obviously a big deal for you. So just out of curiosity, what is that hang up, right? What's the biggest challenge that you're thinking about right now? And he works with the homeowner to work them through that challenge. He then shows them samples and assuages that issue, shows them how it's not going to be a problem and how beautiful it is. And then he asks for the business again. The homeowner writes him a check, and James leaves with a scheduled job, a check in hand, and knowing that he's going to provide the best experience possible for this homeowner, right? And the reason I like to tell those two stories is because the primary difference between those two individuals is not that one necessarily has a ton more experience or that one is particularly more talented or necessarily even better with people, right? It's not a function of skill. Oftentimes it's a function of intention. Now, over time, a salesperson that shows up with that better intention consistently again and again and again is going to develop far more skill than somebody that shows up with the intention of leaving a quote. The gap is going to increase over time. But when you have the intention, right, of actually getting the job, when you have the intention of helping the homeowner determine the absolute best course of action for them, and you have the confidence because of the quality of work and the way that you show up for your homeowners that is you, you spend more time doing the little things, right? Like showing up early, being prepared, having clean clothes in your car, asking the right questions, understanding everything that's going on with the homeowner, asking for the business, learning to cover objections, and then asking for the business again. Like the amount of effort you put into it when your intention is not just to leave a quote is significant. And so the reason I wanted to dive into these three things is as a beginner or somebody that's not fully mastered sales yet, these are three things that are super easy to implement. Well, maybe not easy. They're simple. There's a huge difference between simple and easy, right? Running a marathon is pretty simple. You just run. It's not easy. Okay, the things that we talk about here, these are three simple things that you can implement into your business to really make a change when it comes to your sales. It's not necessarily easy, right? But understanding the why and knowing that sales is going to be one of the big driving factors in your business, right? Moving your sales rate from 15 to 20% is literally a massive change. That's a 33% increase. That means you went from, if you were doing 100,000 one year to doing 130,000 the next year. A 5% change at that level is massive. And so we want to form the habit of practicing these things on a regular basis with the homeowners. And so I think that's a really, really good stopping point. There's few things for you to work on. And just as a quick summary, urgency. Call your leads as soon as you get them. Okay, it's super important. Number 2, pleasant persistence. You want to call multiple times. The average sales is going to take 5 follow-ups. Follow up and be the type of person that they want to talk to. Okay? The next thing, practice gratitude. Be thankful for the opportunity. If you find yourself complaining about buyers all the time, they're probably not buying from you because you're miserable to be around. All right? That's okay because it's a choice. You can fix it. The last piece, set proper intentions. We don't show up to give quotes. We show up to help the homeowners make the best decision. And we show up with the confidence that that best decision is us. And then lastly, but at least we didn't cover this, if that intention is that you are the best, when it comes time to show up on that project and do the work, make sure you are the best. Say it one more time. When it comes time to show up and do the work, make sure you are the best. Go the extra mile. Make sure your customer's taken care of. And that is going to increase your success significantly. Thank you guys for listening. Check out the links below. We do have the waitlist sign up. Also, if you like this, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe and like. If you're watching this on the podcast platform, make sure to follow us. And we will see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks for hanging out with us at Tradesmen Talks.